Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. Too much of a bother to shave lately because I don't have a manager telling me when I get to work, hey, Brandon, you need to shave, because otherwise when you go to the tables the guests are going to wonder why you haven't shaved. Don't have to go to the tables anymore. That's good stuff. So anyways, here we are with some tests I have from today. Did some tests. I allowed the children to use their notes. We did a little bit of review on most of the questions. Let's start with Brandon. Now the question is, who was Hammurabi and what did he do? Brandon says Hammurabi put a stone in the middle of the city with the laws. Question mark. He wasn't sure. Yes, that's Hammurabi. And Daniel says he put a big rock in the middle of the city and it had a whole bunch of rules on it. Question mark. True, true. Closer to what I needed was what Caden Cumin put. Caden says Hammurabi ruled Babylonia and he put a rock in the middle of the city with the laws on it. Cumin says Hammurabi is the king of Babylonia. He made the first laws. He called his laws Hammurabi's code. We call his laws Hammurabi's code. And he didn't make the first laws, he made some of the first known examples, one of the best earliest examples of a codified system of laws for a large empire, group of cities. So they're very close, very good. I could have had just a little more. Nobody mentioned that Hammurabi was the guy who conquered the Assyrians, and while gluing together his empire he did this, but they did very well. The second question was, what are plague, famine, and drought? And plague, famine, and drought, Daniel says plague is a type of disease. He's got something in there. Famine, he says, is to move away from the center. Centrifugal force and famine, for some reason, I don't know. It's got centrifugal and centripetal forces mixed up there with famine. Drought, he says, is a flood. So again, he's got something there. Let's see what we had from Brandon. The plague is a very bad disease. You can get it from a lot of things. Famine is starvation. Drought is no more rain. So he did better than Daniel. Given a couple of misspellings, rain is R-A-N-E. All of the misspellings are marked out. And they get it back and they pour over every bit of it. Caden says that plague is a very bad sickness that a lot of people get. Right. Yeah, pretty close. That's about the best that they could do. Famine is starvation. Right. Drought is no rain for a long time. Perfect. Caden got perfect on that one. Cumin says plague is many types of diseases, but it spreads fast through man. Oh, pardon me. Fast through many people. Perfect. Perfect. Famine is starvation. A drought is where there is no rain at all. Perfect. Good job, guys. Alright, so there's Cumin and Caden on question 2. Question 3, and this is only 3 questions long, is tell me about Aristotle and Alexander the Great. Caden says Aristotle was born in Macedon, then he moved to Athens for most of his life, then he went back to Macedon and tutored King Philip's son, Anaximander. And I docketed him 5 points. Because why is he telling me about Anaximander? And then he keeps on going on and on about Anaximander and what Anaximander did. And the question's about Alexander, not Anaximander. So Philip's son Anaximander, then Aristotle started a school in Macedon called the Lyceum. Wrong. He started a school in Athens called the Lyceum. King Philip spent his life putting together Macedon. Then when he put that together, he was just getting ready to invade Lower Greece, or he had started invading Lower Greece. When he died, then Anaximander took over and invaded Greece, Turkey, Ionian Islands, Syria, Egypt, Baghdad, no, Iraq, Persia actually, right, thank you, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. I didn't name all those cities that he invaded. I showed them the region he invaded. Caden, on his own initiative, wrote down all this, because they're allowed to look at their notes, they're allowed to look at the maps. So he wrote down all the countries within the area of what he remembered was the Persian Empire. And on their way back, Anaximander, that's better than Anaximander, Anaximander died from a fever while going across the desert. Possibly a disease, but possibly drank himself to death. So Caden did very well on that. Cuman on the Tell Me About Aristotle and Alexander. He says Aristotle was one of 3 greatest philosophers. He went to teach, he didn't name the other 2 philosophers, he went to teach Alexander. Later, when Alexander grew up, he conquered a huge empire, and he died when he was walking through a desert. Yes, well, Cuman gave that to me, and I gave it back to him. I said, that's not quite sufficient. Why don't you try a little harder? Tell me more about Aristotle if you can. He says, therefore, on the back, Aristotle lived most of his life in Athens, but he was born in Macedonia. When Alexander took over Athens, they didn't like people from Macedonia, so they didn't like Aristotle a lot anymore. And one of Alexander's generals took Aristotle's books and made a school in Alexandria, and Alexandria became the center of learning, not Athens. Or where did Alexandria come from? He didn't mention that, but doing very well, did very well. Brandon for Tell Me About Aristotle. It says Aristotle student is Alexander. His school was Aristotle Lyceum. Alexander died from a fever. And I said that's not quite sufficient, Brandon. Here, try a little more. So he elaborated just a bit on the new page I gave him. Aristotle and Alexander. He says, King Philip, he put together Macedonia. Aristotle was born and raised in Macedonia and lived in Athens. That's what he added to the other. Pretty good. I mean, he's in, 2nd grade, or would have been if he were still in the public prison system. Daniels, Tell Me About Aristotle. He says, Aristotle is a teacher. Aristotle is the teacher of Alexander's father. Wants Alexander to learn about everything. Alexander was from Macedonia. Aristotle, I think Aristotle's father was a doctor. I think Alexander's father was a doctor. No, Alexander's father was king of Macedonia. Aristotle's father was a doctor. Aristotle's father was the doctor of King Philip, the king of Macedonia. So, fine. They're doing very fine. Daniel performed least, of course, on the test. As predicted. Cuman the best. But I assert that I already see great changes and advances in Daniel's capacities and abilities. So, I don't think we have anything to worry about. He's behind his younger brother, but his younger brother has quite an advantage, just a few extra weeks at this school. Well, there's the update for the tests we've done today. Tabitha, by the way, instead of doing that, she's not really comfortable. Most words really don't work for her. So she's just getting good at reading. We're moving her right along. She's going to be able to read much, much better than the boys who are 2 or 3 years older than her. Just within another month or 2, she's going to be quite well off. But we're still spending time on her, having her read a lot more, rather than having her do most of the note-taking. She does a lot of the note-taking, but sometimes we send her off, do a little stuff over with Bobby Sue on another table while we do some tests and stuff. So, that's why we didn't have any samples from her test answers.